Hello, I'm Salty Duchess. I recently got done doing my sort of first impressions review of the Walking Dead role-playing game. Pretty fun. Wanted to show off a little bit of what the solo rules look like. I'm going to get started on a little mini-series here, playing through the Walking Dead solo. We're just going to start with the campaign setup for this video, probably, unless that's way quicker than the first time I did it, but I kind of doubt it. Don't mind my hands. I have some awesome rug burns on my knuckles. I had to put some more stuffing into our couch, and the stuffing was a little bit bigger. It was a little bit bigger than like the cushion container. So instead of like cutting it to size like a reasonable person, I just behaved like a caveman and shoved it in as hard as I possibly could, sort of ignoring the laws of thermodynamics and friction. But whether you are playing in a game as a player or getting set up for solo, first thing you're going to do is make a character. So let's get started with that. Once again, as with when I was sort of looking at Twilight 2000 and playing that solo, I have kind of a similar issue where this book was really fun to read through, and then like trying to use it in practice was a little bit more difficult than I would have liked, but information and concepts end up spread out between so many pages, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to figure out if sort of the vocabulary they're using is gamified vocabulary or just, you know, like when they say challenge, it can be a little bit difficult to know, does challenge mean something codified in the game, or are they just saying challenge like you or I would say challenge during a conversation? So anyways, I'll shut up and get started creating our character. Step one is an archetype. See, even this, my goal is to create a character, right? And we know starting off right away, the very first thing we need to do is choose an archetype. And the archetypes start like multiple pages through after to here. Like the most recent character creation that I've stepped through was Legend of the Five Rings. And it's like 20 questions step by step. Each step comes after the other logically. Anyways, I'm just complaining. Aren't there 12 options? Let me see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. All right. I'm a little bit too lazy right now to read through all of them to get a vibe. So let's just roll for it. 12 options. They've got a dice for that. 2. I believe this is the first page. It is. So let's roll with a doctor. Oh, and these, I'll be using a number of different sheets throughout this. We got a character sheet, a haven sheet, and I think a challenge sheet. Yeah. Haven, character, and challenge. So I'll put a link into the description for those resources if you're interested. And now that we've picked an archetype, flip forward 6 pages. Choose a name. I'll save that for the end. Choose an issue. So the issue isn't something that's like really hard mechanically, like maybe in some games I'm blanking on a specific example, but it's not like a hard set list of issues to choose from. It's sort of just, you just come up with a sentence that is obviously going to cause issues for your character somehow. Again, not to make this video about Legends of the Five Rings, but I can't help but draw comparisons because it was just yesterday that I made my first character in that game. And they have things kind of like this. They have Ninjo and Giri, and what those basically are is for your character, you have responsibilities to your lord, and you have personal desires, and they're at odds with each other. And it's kind of a similar-ish thing here with the issues and drives, where it's not like a hard codified game mechanic. It's more just a sentence that describes an aspect of your character that might come up during play. But what was nice about Legend of the Five Rings is you got some like really nice examples to kind of get the juices flowing. And the examples are kind of listed out a little bit more nicely than just sort of being buried in a block of text. But anyways, yapping aside, what is this doctor's issue? Maybe just that they gotta help everyone, right? Well, or you could argue that's more of a drive as well, potentially. I think I'll say their issue is that they are gullible, especially if someone is injured or in need. Let's see, a drive. You could lean towards the drive of just sort of helping people, which is a very common drive just for a doctor in general. Or you could lean into the desire to cure and research the outbreak. I'm going to go a little bit more on the dramatic side and say that they want to cure or research the outbreak. All right, then we're going to distribute 13 points amongst our attributes. But I want to look at the solo rules for a second, because when you are playing solo, you do get a bit of a bonus during character creation, and I can't remember if it is on attributes or skills. Skill points. Okay. Just looking here at the attributes, because the maximum value you can have is 4, except for your key attribute for your archetype, which is empathy for doctors. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick a 5 in it, because it's the only one that I have the opportunity to do that for. Now we've got 8 more to go. Let's say they are in decent shape, but not very witty. Practical, which kind of makes sense. A little more, maybe a little bit more, because this is what, scout, survival, tech. Tech is the only one that jumps out to me that you would stereotypically associate with a doctor maybe being decent with. Scouting and survival, maybe not as much. With that done, we would normally distribute 12 points amongst our skills, but as per what we saw with the solo rules, we get 14. Can't help but put at least a couple into medicine. Stealth always feels good. So is mobility, a little bit of close combat as well. Kind of need to make the character capable of doing a little something on their own since it is solo. That, or like if they weren't any good at defending themselves, I guess you could do more of like a drama intrigue sort of campaign that's really centered around the haven and the NPCs in it, and you don't really go out as much. But if you're not like going out on exploration, you're kind of missing out on quite a bit of the game. It sets up quite a bit of exploration with this grid-based system they have. So I'd rather just have a character who can handle themselves and go out a bit. I happen to know scouting will come in handy. It's tough. The character I made to play solo before my What's Exciting About video didn't have much in the way of empathy skills. So I'm maybe going to buff them up and see what use I can drag out of them. Skill points, done. Choose a talent. I think you might... Oh, and for anyone curious, this is a little something I installed into the spine of the book myself. It does not come with a ribbon. Normally, there's not really much to it. Just cut off a length of ribbon and stick it in the spine. But if you do decide to do something like this, make sure you get archival quality glue, PVA glue. The only difference is that it's non-acidic and it's flexible when it dries. So if you use like Elmer's glue, it'll eventually kind of like eat away at the spine, which you don't want. Yeah, so choose 2 talents, basically. Let's go with doctor-patient hierarchy, which will make him better at manipulating injured people, which actually sounds pretty sinister when you lay it out like that. Basically just good bedside manner, though, practically speaking. And it has this little bit of flavor at the end. You somehow used one of your patients to your own benefit. Part of the thing with talents in the system is they all have a little bit of that sort of like a flavor sentence to them. And you're supposed to, it's sort of a prerequisite, but also kind of not really, because you can just sort of retroactively come up with some story to their backstory about how they fulfilled that flavor sentence. I'm kind of thinking with their goal to cure or research the outbreak, I'm kind of leaning a little sinister with that, using one of your patients to your own benefit. Like maybe they use their manipulation and their really good bedside manner to like talk someone into an experimental treatment on their illness that maybe they were a little uncomfortable with, but they kind of talked them into it because they wanted to see what would happen. And then, so we took a doc talent. We were probably going to take one of these solo recommended talents as well. Let's take 9 lives. So in this game, when you take a certain amount of damage and end up taking a critical injury, you roll a pair of dice. Assuming that it's just like the Walker injury table or any of Free League's other injury tables in like Twilight 2000, I didn't actually interact with critical injuries directly when I was playing solo in preparation for my video, because the person I was playing died quite violently and suddenly to walkers. So I actually have only interacted with that walker attack table. I'm going to assume the critical injury table is quite a bit like the others. You roll 2d6, and then generally the higher the result, the more deadly it is. And 9 lives is going to let me say I rolled a 61. Might be instant death. You can swap it around so it's a 16 instead, which is probably a light injury by comparison. Though if you roll 66, no one can help you now. And the flavor text for that is you should have died, but you didn't. You should have died, but you didn't. I'm getting kind of this vibe of them. Maybe they should have died somehow at sort of the start of the outbreak, but I can't really, the details aren't like filling themselves in. So I'm actually going to roll on this theme oracle that we get for solo play. Let's see if that sparks a little inspiration. 13. Oh, the theme oracle is a D66. 13 column 2. Exhaustion. 41-1. Exhaustion confrontation. Yeah, maybe he was having some sort of a fight or confrontation at work then. Maybe with leadership or even a coworker, and decided to maybe clock out and head home just a little bit early that day. And maybe that hospital he worked at was a real hotspot for the beginning of the outbreak. So he should have died. He should have been in the hospital. But because of that exhausting confrontation, he decided to head home. That's the first idea that comes to mind anyways. We'll roll with it for now. It's not like the RPG police are going to kick down my door if I change my mind later. Okay, so those are my 2 talents, actually, since we're solo. Numero 8, choose my gear. Gear table for our archetype. Let's, what have I been doing? I've been rolling generic dice. Let's pull out something fancier. Why not? Since they're round. 3 pieces of gear. I wonder, they have you re-roll on duplicates? Yeah. Re-roll on dupes. No dupes anyways. Basic medical gear, medication and drugs, and a car. Interesting. And then since I am playing solo, if I get done allotting all of my gear and I don't have a weapon, you do automatically get a knife. So that you have some hope of not dying. That's interesting. I haven't had a vehicle before, so I actually don't know where they want you to record that. Where do they put the gear tables? Basic med and medication and drugs. Basic med gear takes up a slot. Similar complaint with the sheets that I had for Twilight 2000. It's this kind of grid-based thing they got going on, but a lot of the gear that takes up 1 slot is like, there's just not enough room, man. It's either not enough room or they just assume you have the tiniest handwriting. I guess I can assume medication and drugs are tiny items. Yeah, actually, they got all the attributes of a vehicle there, but nowhere to put it on any of their provided sheets. Guess I'll just record it flip side of the character sheet. All right, and if I remember right, we get to roll once on a scavenging table. 252. 1 ration of dried meat. Sick. Wait, is that ration or dog meat? Or, yeah, dried meat, not dog meat. Nice. Real food. Human food. Okay, and then I didn't get a weapon, so give meself a knife. Define your relationships to other PCs. Done. None. And choose 2 anchors. So that's a little bit different when you're playing solo as well. Yeah, kind of the default assumption you roll with in this game, though. When you're playing solo, is one of the NPCs in the haven that you create is going to be a companion, someone that you're extra close with. Yeah, so the whole conceit with solo is that you and this companion were kind of wandering around through the apocalypse, and you've stumbled on this haven populated with other people. So now you and your companion are sort of the new people to the haven. So the next steps are to like pick anchors, but the PC anchor is replaced by your companion, and then you can have, I think, another NPC anchor as a person in the haven, but I don't really want to pick those until we actually just generate the haven. So let's do that next. Set aside the character sheet for a minute and get to work on the haven instead. Let's go ahead and create our own haven. as per the solo rules. So let's split it evenly. Capacity and defense. 26. We are living in a hotel. Welcome to the Hotel California. I guess for what it's worth, I'm picturing kind of a smaller hotel in a smaller town, like a come on in Super 8 kind of thing, not like a Marriott or whatever. All right, choose a square on the edge of the map for a haven location. I wonder if they meant the literal edge, because when I played, I didn't choose an edge at all. I just chose somewhere in the center, I think. Choose one of the squares on the edge of the map for the location of your haven. Nah, whatever. Let's choose this little town, Comer, Georgia. So our haven is going to be in grid N10. All right, and then we're going to go back to page 144, and for each grid next to N10, so all 8 of those grids, going to go back to that table on 144, roll to see what the location is like, but we're also going to roll an extra d6 to see like a little more depth of what exactly is going on with this with these locations. Now this is, I thought, a pretty fun little section of getting the campaign going for a solo player. Really get to kind of flesh out the area next to you a little bit. 142 or 14-2. So in M9, we have a decrepit building. There's a gang on the 3rd floor, and they use chained up zombie officers as protection on the 1st floor. That's sick. All right. We're also going to be generating some factions at some point. I wonder if they have you make factions that close to your haven, actually. They might not. I was about to say maybe they'll end up becoming one of our factions right away, but maybe not. 54 and 6. So in N9, we have a graveyard. Inhabited by a naked man who is obsessed with killing and burying walkers. See, it's kind of unfair to that man. Like, I don't know if he's always naked and if he's always obsessed with killing and burying walkers, right? But you do that one time and now you're sort of stuck with a reputation. Let's figure out 09. 25-3. 09 has a suburban family home, rat infestation, and interested walkers. It's been so long since I watched The Walking Dead. I thought Zeds, or walkers, I guess, didn't care about non-human living creatures. Did I just make that up? Maybe I'm thinking of a different zombie franchise. Let's figure out M10. Ooh, let's do 62, 5. So M10 has a storage facility, but a hostile faction is using that storage facility, and a walker trap, and an alarm system. So a well-prepared faction. It's making me wonder. I want to go look real quick at this again. Okay, so it specifies none will contain a walker swarm or another faction. I wonder if I should redo at least the M10 result, since it's so explicitly a faction. The decrepit building, maybe you just don't have to consider those boys a faction. Yeah. I'm going to undo M10 since it specifies to not have a faction right next to you. I think I'm going to leave M9 as it is, even though that sounds a little bit like a faction. It's just kind of too cool. We'll just have them behave as sort of more an ambient area threat rather than a full-blown faction. Again, the RPG police will not kick down my door. I am on their whitelist. I can do whatever I want. So we're going to say instead that this still has some good stuff left for looting, but has walkers. Don't ask how to get on the RPG police whitelist, because I will not tell you. 10, 66, 3. So there is a museum and it just has an exhibition on death, basically. Okay, M11. Let's go 12, 2. That is a school. Whoa. Stash of 30 rations and a single walker. Yeah, sometimes a single walker turns into a lot of walkers real quick, though. Found that out with my first character, who met a very untimely demise, distracting what he thought was a relatively limited-sized horde. It was not. And 11. 45. 3. A rock club. I assume they mean music, not geological rocks. 40 Molotov cocktails in a line. What a strange thing to have at the location. Did the person who made all those cocktails go and die? Was making the 40 cocktails the end of their ambitions? All right, 11. We'll just barely call that 25. Ooh, another suburban home, but this time, ooh, wow. There's a stereo attracting walkers, but it has fully functional wind power station. Really? Rooftop wind power? Is that an actual thing? I've heard of solar upgrades, but... All right, so there's our home, and now we've got an idea of some various things going on right around our immediate home. I think this is just a really great little part of getting a campaign ready for solo play. It's like there's so many little seeds for stories and drama and decisions to sprout from, and you can ignore some of them and just take the ones that you find the most interesting. Not every one is equally as earth-shatteringly interesting. I think it's just a great little way to flesh things out at the start, give you some ideas. Blank page is always the hardest to start with, so they really help you fill in some dots. Come up with 4 issues for my haven, and they recommend the table on 88 for guidance. Okay. I'm just gonna straight up. It wants 4 issues, so has a secret dark issue. A pack of nearby wolves. I mean, I laugh, but like that shit would be actually pretty terrifying. Can kind of assume the apocalypse has made the wolves a bit more bold or desperate, perhaps. 15. Oof. Easily spotted. And our last issue. 56. Some parts submerged underwater. Flooded basement, And we're not even done with creation yet, setting up the campaign yet, but you can kind of start to see, these issues we have with the haven and the information we have about the locations around us. Like, we're starting to get like these, it's just helping you add seasoning to your dish. And when we get started, you'll have a lot of ingredients and spices to choose from. And lastly, to create the haven, choose our first haven project. That is some kind of upgrade that takes a number of days to finish. That improves the haven somehow. I do feel it could be nice to have a few more project examples, but what shall we do? Yeah, I don't know what to do for this one. Let's get a little weird, a little spicy with it. Go with our project being wolf taming to give our haven a defense of 3. Workforce. Probably really only want a handful of people doing it, but it'd probably take, weeks, months, I don't know. Shooting from the hip. Who knows if that will even be a project we finish. And time to create our first faction of interest. Drop a die on the map to decide where they're at. I like that. Far, far away. Although C3 becomes only our best guess. So factions go on the challenge sheet. We're going to have a lot of extra details though, so I'm going to write a lot of stuff on the back. So approximately C3 is our best guess of where they are located. Now on page 99, we can see what creating a faction looks like. Name. It's so weird to me that the first thing they're suggesting you take a look at is naming the faction. Like, how are you supposed to name something if you don't know any of their characteristics? I want to understand their whole circumstance and then name them, just like this faction. I want to understand what this faction actually is and then give them a name that is fitting to what they are. Anyways, shut up and make the faction already. So let's roll for faction size. 6 on faction size. Crap. 50 plus troublemakers. Type. They are outcasts forced together because nobody else wanted them in both society before and or after. They could be a group of runaways, prisoners, homeless people, or people who are just plain unlikable. Homeless pre-apocalypse or just kind of jerks post-apocalypse are the two ones that stand out to me as the most interesting. Like, it's just all the most insufferable people of the post-apocalypse gathered together in one faction. I feel like since their numbers are so high, though, 50 plus, if they're all unlikable jerks, like, I guess they could have a centralized leader keeping things in check, but it's like a recipe for a self-destructing faction. I'm going to say it's a band of homeless individuals. Well, everyone's homeless now, but homeless individuals pre-apocalypse. Leadership. A doctrine or code of conduct is interpreted to decide what is wrong or right. It could just be rules that the group made up, laws from before the outbreak, probably not, religious beliefs, probably not, or thoughts and ideas from a mad soothsayer. I think I'm going to lead towards them having sort of created their own set of guidelines, I guess you could say. Assets. They have a lot of cars and gasoline, or guzzling. Nope, wrong universe, not guzzling. Needs. 2, control over its territory. So something is contested about their area. Issues. I wonder if I'm supposed to generate issues right now, actually, if we're creating a solo faction. Okay, I just don't determine the nature of their haven. I skipped that. Right. I skipped that because I don't know exactly what grid they're in. All right, issues. Another dice for that one. 22 means someone in the group is the victim of aggression, either verbal or physical. To summarize it in a couple of words, I guess, their issue is abusive cliques. Haven, skip important NPCs. The abusive cliques issue kind of helps write the NPCs for us. We'll just define basically the leaders of these two factions within this faction, basically. Let's see. Niles, Albrecht. Let's see, is Niles a victim or a bully? Let's go with lead. Let's go with victim. Call him the leader, main spokesperson of the abused clique. Issue is that they are cowardly. They are an expert in manipulation. And I don't know, let's say they've got a gun that's only got a few bullets. And what else feels like fitting gear for this? Let's just say they've got liquor and cigarettes. And who's going to be the leader of the bullies? Amanda McCarthy. And again, kind of leader in air quotes, maybe just sort of the typically most outspoken individuals for these groups. What's a good issue for her? Bully. Maybe she's very dismissive of individuals she deems useless. And then let's give her a map, a compass, and a knife, and an expert in close combat. And trained in survival. All right, we'll call it there for NPCs. Now the end game. So what does this faction do if we don't interfere with their operation at all? I definitely want to go check out that Oracle table again for a little inspiration, little theme Oracle for what they'll be up to in the end game. 62. Oh, that's right. The theme Oracle is a 3 for 623. Trauma. Trauma devotion. Trauma devotion. Let's give it one more and see if a picture paints itself. Trauma devotion survival. Then I would say a terrible event traumatizes the group, uniting them under Amanda or another strong bully, and they begin bullying externally. So now we can see this picture painted of this group that's quite large and has the potential to be extremely problematic, but because of their own sort of internal strife and issues, they're not as outwardly influencing as they could be. Now we need a name, though. Now that we've painted this picture, we'll just name them the Unwanted and fill in the very first section of their clock. Bada bing, bada boom. Pretty far away, so hard to know if we'll interact with them a lot. But even though they're pretty far away, there are a lot of members and strife. Maybe we'll run into them some, maybe we won't. Now we're going to generate some rumors, just even more seasoning and ingredients for us. Over on F6, we have a 2, which is a dangerous NPC or faction. At an important location or site. I am going to say, to tie it into my character's interests, that there's currently a dangerous faction working on seizing a disease research facility. And it's just a rumor. At K4, we have got a walker swarm attacking a neutral faction. Let's say they're attacking a scientist group. Again, theming it really hard towards this character. Let's see if we can get one kind of close to our haven. That's pretty close. K11, we got a 2. So that is a dangerous NPC or faction again. And a walker swarm again. I'm going to leave that one a little bit vague for now. Just some sort of dangerous faction versus a walker swarm is going on. Okay, we'll back it up here a little bit and get to creating our NPC survivors. I'm going to shortcut it a little bit by just using a survivor group from page 30, I think. Ooh, right away this catches my eye that there's a medical student here. All right, let's set up these NPC survivors. I am just going to roll with group number 6 here on page 31. So I'm just going to copy all that over for my reference. Speaking of pressure cooker elements, with this package of NPCs, you have the crux of the issue for this group is around Angela Flores. She's a young med student. I think I'm probably going to make her my companion anchor, but she has a young baby, which presents its own unique set of challenges in a zombie-based apocalypse. And I would suspect going to butt heads a lot with Gail Barraza, because one of her issues is that she is eager to make hard choices. Hard choices like what to do with a crying baby. More ingredients, more issues. Now that we have the survivors, we're going to create a little relationship map. Let's see, we've got Gail Barraza. I think she's probably going to be our leader. Angela, she is the young mother. Jacob, our young baby. Jason Lee, who is a farmer who feels a lot of responsibility for everyone else in the group. And Barbara Ferrara. Figure out how to fit some more R's into that name for us. This is Barbara being a young runaway teen who, actually, according to her issues, we've already got part of our relationship map. She is in love with Angela, and it is secret and one way. I'm going to have Angela, this med student, be friends with me and have her kind of be my NPC anchor, my companion. Your special companion that you get when you're playing solo, since you have no other players for your PC anchor. Let's see. We'll have Barbara love Angela as per her issue. Angela is going to consider her a confidant, but not a lover. Let's say that Barbara distrusts Gail. Young, rebellious teenager and leadership and all that. One of Jacob's flaws is that he is generally feeling very protective over all the others, and I would think that might apply even more so to the child. Protective relationship. Obviously, the baby loves and needs its mother. And maybe for some reason, babies can be sometimes, just kind of dislikes Barbara. Maybe that makes her her desire for Angela even more difficult, the fact that the child always reacts negatively to Barbara. Maybe Jacob pities Gail and her responsibilities. I'll say maybe Gail distrusts Jacob a little bit, thinks that he might be after her leadership position. Ourselves into confidants with the leader. Maybe just because I'm like new to the group, they feel more comfortable being a confidant with me. It can be that way sometimes. People who are around the most can almost be harder to open up to sometimes. Care what they think about you a little more. So that makes Angela my anchor and Gail, or my companion and Gail Barraza, another anchor for me. That is pretty much it. Next time we're going to pick a challenge and get started on our first session, but that is it for the setup. You can see some of what I'm talking about in my review when it's like, it just sets up this pressure cooker of all of these different elements that are ready to pop off, you know. We have these rumors. Rumors are a little more passive. They're a little more something that's like trying to draw you out of your haven into something you find interesting. Sometimes less so something you have to respond to, but a rumor could turn into a challenge if that seemed interesting. And you've got all this tension and issues going on with the NPCs in your haven, and you've got one faction fleshed out that is ready to cause issues, and you know we're going to be discovering some more factions as we go along that might cause even more issues for us, let alone our own issues and the issues that are inherent to our haven. So that is it for session 0 and the setup. So I will be doing another episode where we play through at least one solo session, beginning to end. The series will probably end after the first solo session, if I had to guess. I mean, it's just there are so many games that, you know, I want to look at and play, and it's hard to really feel like I want to spend a ton of time playing just one game. And besides that, you know, part of what I've enjoyed about this series is getting a comment or two saying that my videos helped someone else get into playing the game I had talked about solo. And I think that's kind of all you need if you're looking for someone to help you get started, is like, what does it look like to prepare? What does a session look like? And then once you know that, you can just sort of the one session on repeat. But we'll see. No promises. Thoughts, Puchita? Enigmatic as always. Thanks for your time. Bye.